Alright, welcome back to the Animal Combo Project in Adobe Photoshop CC. In this tutorial, part 8, we're going to actually add the shadow, Kasha. We're going to add shadows to the animal. And we might even get to some color correction here before we finally wrap up this image. So let's start off by actually creating a shadow for this image. If you can see here, I have the animal on one layer. So what I'm going to do is we're going to right click and duplicate layer and click OK. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the B key. Actually, I'm going to control, or actually first I'm going to right click and I'm going to rasterize this layer. It doesn't have to be a smart object for this layer. So I'm going to control or command click on the thumbnail, and then I'm going to hit the B key for brush, and I'm going to hit the D key to make sure I have black as my default, 100% normal, and just paint this whole thing black. So what I'm doing essentially here is painting in a shadow layer that represents the same sort of shape of the animal. So then I'm going to hit Control D or Command D on Mac to deselect. So I'm going to hit Control T or Command T on the Mac to free transform. And I'm going to right click and go to flip vertical, and that will flip it basically vertically. And then I'm going to hold Shift with the move tool and basically just drag it down till I get about here. Now, what I can do is I can nudge it up just a tad till they touch basically right here and here, and then just hit enter or return on the Mac. And if we look at the light in our situation here, it's pretty much daylight from the top, so basically light coming down directly. So what I'm going to do is drop the shadow opacity a little bit. Before I do that, notice here, if we zoom in, that this leg here needs to come down a little bit. And so there's a couple different ways you could do that, but what I'm essentially going to do is use the lasso tool here and just select this leg here. And then I'm going to hit Control T or Command T on the Mac and then just nudge it down using the Shift key until I get it to line up, something like that. Looks pretty good. And then just hit enter return and then hit Control D to deselect. And I think I could probably paint a little bit of that shadow there, but I think it's close enough where you wouldn't notice it. But actually, I think I will paint it in. So I'm just going to switch to the paintbrush tool again, and I'm just going to paint across. Let me undo that last action. Paint across maybe just right here. That doesn't quite look right. I think I will leave it open. I think it looks okay. And then what I'm going to do now is drop the shadow layer below the other image. And then I'm going to drop the opacity of that layer, because when you drop the opacity, you're not going to notice as much in terms of the shape. Just trying to get an idea here. And then have a nice sort of shadow but that matches close to the shadows back here. And then what I want to do is blur the shadow a little bit. So what I'm going to do is choose filter, blur, and then choose the Gaussian blur and just have it up a little bit. 0.4 works pretty well, maybe 0.7. Just a little bit of blur here. Click OK, just so it's kind of softened up a little bit, and that looks pretty good. So now let's add shadows to our animal and some highlights. So let's add a layer above it, and what we're going to do is we're going to clip this by holding down Alt or Option between the two layers to clip it. So we have a clipping layer here, and then I'm going to hit B for brush, right click, choose a soft brush, and I'm going to use 50%. So I'm going to type in 5 for 50, and I'm increasing the size of my brush, and I am using that soft brush. So essentially what I want to do is essentially paint underneath here where shadows would apply, basically underneath the animal. Now if I go too far like I did on the tail there, I just need to shrink down my brush a little bit and basically painting some shadows. So maybe some shadows in here. And basically what this is doing is the shadows are kind of unifying everything, but also allowing us to connect in terms of reality, because we have direct sunlight coming down directly on top. Maybe some shadows in the knuckles there, and I think that would probably be about it. And then what I'm going to do is change this blend mode to multiply, and then I can drop the opacity of it a little bit if I need to. That's what's great about having it on its own layer. Then I'm going to add another layer, and then I'm going to hold Alt or Option, clip it again. This time I'm going to hit the X key, so I have white as my foreground color, and I'm going to drop the opacity down to maybe 30% by hitting the 3 key. and then I'm just increasing my brush size and just kind of paint across here to basically get like highlights, like basically the sun sort of hitting the tops of everything. And then I'm going to change the blend mode to linear dodge add, and then drop the opacity a little bit here again. So we can maybe get 60%, maybe a little bit less, maybe around 50% or so. And that looks pretty good. Now we need some color correction, so I'm going to add a new layer again. Hold Alt or Option and click in here, and then I'm going to use the gradient tool this time, and I'm going to basically hold Alt or Option and select blue of the sky, then hit the arrow key here or the X key and hold Alt or Option and select some color in the ground. I'm going to choose this brown here, and then reverse these guys, and then with blue as my foreground color, I'm going to hold Shift as I drag downwards, so I should get this nice gradient effect here. And then I'm going to change this blend mode to color, and then I'm going to drop the overall opacity of that. So by adding our cast shadow first, then some nice shadows, and then having a color overlay sort of color correction, provides some nice soft transitioning. The final step would be to deal with the sand, maybe incorporate some sand dust in here, maybe paint in some sand, sort of air, atmosphere sort of quality, and then adjust maybe blur and grain. So we'll do that final little steps and then the last tutorial. And until next time, see you soon in Adobe Photoshop CC. Cheers.